Everybody, if you were at the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina on this date in 1864 and looked out at the ocean, you would have seen the Union blockade and then an explosion. But where did the explosion come from? A submarine, the Hunley. When the Civil War began, the Northern Navy blockaded the southern coast. You can see all the little blue boats on this map that remind us of that. So the Southerners responded by being creative. There was no way they could match the Northern Navy ship for ship. This picture just is to stand for the size of the Union Navy. And one of the creative ways they did that was by coming up with a submarine. Now, submarines had been around for a long time, at least the idea. This one from 1776 called the Turtle was designed by David Bushnell. Not quite sure if it actually worked, but a model of it is at the Submarine Museum in Groton, Connecticut, pictured here. And it's a great museum for submarines. I commend it to you. So our story takes place off of Charleston Harbor. Fort Sumter, which is the gray dot, had fallen when the Civil War started to the south. But the Northern Navy kept the blockade up outside of Charleston. So this is the Hunley. It was designed by Horace Hunley. It was built elsewhere, shipped to Charleston by rail. It was 40 feet long. It had a crew of 8, 7 to turn the crank and 1 to direct it. They had had a bunch of shakedown cruises where people drowned, including Hunley himself. So here's a cutaway of the Hunley. And the idea was to go to an enemy ship and blow it up. And the way to do that would be with a torpedo that was attached to the ship. So the ship would get close to an enemy ship, detonate it by using a mechanical trigger that was attached to the submarine by a line, and hope that the distance between the submarine and the torpedo would be enough. So the crew got in the Hunley on this date, February 17, 1864, and they headed through Charleston Harbor, headed for the Union blockade, and here they are slowly making their way through the harbor with the spar torpedo on the front, hoping to sink the Housatonic. And here the artist's vision of the submarine hitting the Housatonic. The Housatonic was a Union ship. It was wooden hulled and steam powered. The explosion went off. It did sink the Housatonic. 5 Housatonic crew died. But we think the blast was so strong it killed everybody on the Hunley almost right away, and the Hunley disappeared. Well, in the 1970s, someone speculated that the Hunley was still there, buried by silt, not far from where the Housatonic had gone down. And that's the red dot here is where they think the Hunley was, and it was. It was identified for sure in 1995 and raised from the ocean floor using straps in 2000. And this picture shows them using straps to put the Hunley in a special tank at a preservation place in Charleston. And the water in the tank is treated with chemicals to help get rid of the rust. There was just a lot of rust on the Hunley. So it sat in this tank for a long time as they tried to get rid of the rust. Once they were inside the ship, they could identify parts of it clearly, like the drive shaft for the submarine, things having to do with ballast. And today you can view the Hunley. You can't touch it, I don't think. Dorothy and I have never been here, but it's on display at the Warren Lash Conservation Center in Charleston. And what a wonderful relic of the past and of technology. I guess they do have things at the museum where you can be in replicas that are life-size, like these kids turning the propeller shaft. So definitely worth a visit. All 8 crew were buried at the Magnolia Cemetery in Charleston. They were buried with military honors, and each has a pretty good backstory. So a modern submarine like this one, the USS Hawaii, traces its DNA back to that simple ship found in the silt off the coast of Charleston in the shadow of Fort Sumter.